Hey, fellow patriots, I'm Bree.
And I'm Blaze. Some call me Pa. It has been said that we have 4 boxes to keep ourselves free. These are the soap box, the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammo box.
And we are the 4th box. We are here to arm you with enough information, resources, and skills to take back your freedom, increase your self-sufficiency, and inspire you to join in the fight against tyranny.
Thomas Jefferson said, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." Thank you for joining us and for joining in this fight.
Welcome back to the 4th box. Hey guys, welcome back to the 4th Box podcast. If you tuned in last week, you'll know that this is going to be part 2 of a conversation that we had with guest Jacob Johnson from Rise to Liberty podcast. We were not originally planning on splitting this episode into 2, so that's why we decided to just quickly jump on tonight and make sure we had a quote and a toast for you to throw in here, and then we're just going to go ahead and plug the rest of last week's conversation into this episode. So if you haven't, I would really encourage you to go back and listen to last week's episode before you listen to this one, just to kind of give you that introductory part of the conversation. So with that, Pops, I'm going to turn it over to you to get us started tonight with our quote and toast.
Okay. Greetings, 4th Box listeners. Always great to be back with you. As Bree announced, we're going to be concluding a 2-part series with a great guest. Looking forward to that. For the toast tonight, I am toasting Professor Angus Dalglish, I believe is how you say the name. He's from the St. George University in London, who appeared before the Senator Ron Johnson, chaired a committee meeting reviewing the cancers and turbo cancers and all these other things. I think they are still continuing to work at uncovering a lot of what was covered up and masked over during the COVID. So I'm toasting him. I am also toasting Tom Massey and Ro Khanna again. Toast to those guys, 2 of the key people who stood in opposition to Section 224 of the National Defense Appropriations Act. And this is where they weaseled in, thanks to the APAC or whatever that group is that has such a large influence over our Congress people, where they're using a whole lot of different words to describe what this, but they're co-joining the United States military with the Israeli military, and we all should be standing in opposition to this and calling our congressmen and so forth. But it looks as if this is going to go through. It's an outrage. We have never done a thing like this before, but at least in Massey's case, again, probably why he's on the outside looking in now, because the wheels that turned down there simply will not say no to the Israeli agenda. So my toast goes to those 2 folks.
Cheers.
I do have a quote tonight. A politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation. That's James Freeman Clark. That's a bit more of a contemporary there, but I thought that was very well placed. Our moment in history tonight, the Virginia Convention adopted the Declaration of Rights drafted by George Mason. He based a long-established English political precepts found on the Magna Carta, the Petition of Rights, and the Bill of Rights, all of which are part of the British Constitution. So, again, as we have been discussing, now we're getting down to only a few weeks left between now and Independence Day, or the celebration of the signing of Independence Day on 4th of July. And you can see the accumulation of efforts are mounting toward that end. And there's our moment in history from 250 years ago.
Perfect. All right, guys. So now that we have all of our traditional 4th box openers in there for you, we're going to go ahead and press play on part 2 of the conversation with Jacob Johnson. So we'll pick up right where we left off from last week. Like I said before, go ahead, listen to last week's episode if you haven't already. This is a really, really important conversation and talks a lot about, the underlying issues with a lot of the stuff that we see going on today. I also did want to just quickly note, if you do not go back and listen to last week's episode, or if you missed the intro to last week's episode, I just wanted to call attention to the fact that we did have some technical difficulties while recording this conversation. So I ask you to please be patient, bear with us. It might be a little tricky to hear Jacob coming through, but we did our best in trying to rectify the audio quality on his end. So I apologize for that. These things happen from time to time, but like I said, bear with us. It's really, really worth hearing the content, even if it is not perfect quality. All right, enjoy.
Like, for instance, I think one of the best examples as of late, as far as the Manchurian Candidate, is school shooters.
Yeah.
It's clearly a Manchurian Candidate type program. Now, does that mean like the CIA is running it? We're not sure, right? These are the things we don't know. But this information is public. To be able to do this to somebody, you can learn hypnosis. You can get certified in it. You can learn something like NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which basically means like I can hypnotize people through speaking, basically. These are public speakers. So somebody like, trying to think of a good public speaker, Tony Robbins, he is a professional in NLP. So he basically hypnotizes people to a degree in order to make them more successful. You can be hypnotized and quit smoking or lose weight. These things are advertised, and it's real. Now, only about 40% of the population are suggestible enough to actually have it be successful.
Mm-hmm.
But 40% is a large chunk of people. I mean, we're talking millions of people, right? So, and as we can see, it takes one person, one time, one event to change the course of history. Once again, Sirhan Sirhan. Robert Kennedy was going to probably end up winning an election and be the next president. But because of one person, he was able to change the course of history.
Mm-hmm.
But if anyone's curious what I mean about the school shooter thing, look into James Holmes, the Aurora, Colorado shooter. Everything about his story is strange. There's nothing that adds up. In fact, he was studying mind control at university before this happened, before the events of the Aurora, Colorado shooting happened. His father was also involved in all sorts of financial crimes, which he testified for after his son had shot up the movie theater. But charges ended up being dropped and all sorts of things. Plus, they were able to push gun control, which happens every single time. Just odd, right? Like why would you push gun control every single time a tragedy happens, right? And they waste no time. All the gun grabbers, they waste no time.
Yeah.
Correct.
Bodies aren't even cold. And it's just immediately after the guns, because it's the gun's fault.
Of course.
So, I mean, hopefully that answers your question, but this is a very real thing, and it happens on many different levels. So mind control itself, the idea of a person controlling another person, goes back thousands of years. The first, I believe the first recorded account that we have of this is in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which, and what I mean by this is, brainwashing or mind control in the sense of how we understand it today. The first recorded account of brainwashing is in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is 4,000 years old. So it's like, whoa, so, and granted, most people, I believe most people are good people, right? So it's not going to make sense to somebody who's not a terrible person. It doesn't make sense to want to try and control somebody. But there are bad people out there, and these bad people do want to control people. So, unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you believe, it matters what they believe. And what I try to tell people is that there are bad people out there. This information is public. They know how to use it, and they know how to use it well. They know how to use it so well. I am of the belief that this is actually their religion. This is actually their genuine religion, to want to be able to control humanity on this level. And we're talking mind control from the individual level and on the mass level. So being able to control both groups of people, or I guess an individual is not a group, but control the individual and also control groups of people. And just kind of land the plane here, the easiest way to look at mass mind control is Edward Bernays. He's the reason why we eat bacon and eggs for breakfast as Americans. So he was hired by the Beechnut Pork Packing Company in the 30s, I believe. So Edward Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, who's famous psychologist, psychoanalyst, and he applied his uncle's teachings to advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Advertising or public relations is another word for it is propaganda. Now, people, post World War I, pre-World War II, didn't like the phrase propaganda. It didn't sound good. People understand it. They don't like it. So he rephrased propaganda and called it public relations. Which now, anytime a celebrity has, gets a DUI or gets caught with, some lady of the night or whatever, in the news, they hire a public relations firm to be able to try and clean up their reputation. Well, Edward Bernays is the godfather of public relations. He was hired by the pork industry, and he basically worded a letter very carefully to get doctors, or to trick doctors, once again, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, to trick doctors into agreeing that a hearty, healthy breakfast is the better way to go instead of a light breakfast. So the doctors ended up recommending bacon. So now, as Americans, we have bacon and eggs for breakfast because that's the most American breakfast I can think of in any American diner. And that's because of a propaganda campaign. So, and granted, I'm not going to stop eating bacon because this is a propaganda campaign that I love. However, you have to let that sink in. Like,
sure.
Allow yourself to realize the reason why our culture is built around bacon and eggs in a diner is because of an advertising campaign.
Sure.
Yeah.
That is mass mind control.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not some fantasy. This is not some conspiracy theory. This is very real. It happens to us every single day. And once again, things will start changing once we can recognize that this is happening. It's real. There are bad people in the world that want to control you. They do. And it doesn't matter, once again, what you believe. It matters what they believe. Now, all you have to do is look at Bill Gates, Kevin O'Leary. I mean, name any of these billionaires, and it's not hard to find a video of them talking about them wanting to control you, and by you, society, right? Because obviously they know what's best for us. So once you start realizing these people want to control you, then you find out how. And how is through brainwashing.
Yeah, wow. That was heavy. But I know we're just like scratching the surface on all of it because, as you said, there's just so many different projects and programs that date back so many years that could be dove so deeply into. So, Dad, I'll let you take the lead on this because I know you were jotting down a bunch of notes.
Yeah, well, one of the things I wanted to drift past Jacob to see if he subscribes to the notion. I think the whole idea of the brainwashing, the MK Ultra techniques that were learned, and all those things are tools, I guess, covert tools that are used by the elites to kind of those that have chose to want to rule the world. Uh, these are some of the things that are behind the scenes. We also here have subscribed to the notion that uh, the altering of election demographics, in other words, creating a large voting bloc that is going to vote for whatever the agenda tells them to vote for, talking about brainwashing, because they are recipients of the labors of others and they're not going to do anything to have that taken away. So that would be the overt. That's very much in the open. Everybody can see that. But in addition, then the covert things, such as you were describing with the mind control, mass mind control, brainwashing, all the things under the MK Ultra are also, I believe, tools that were designed for this group of elites to better control, manage, and get their will with the rest of us. And is that kind of working hand in hand with what you're suggesting?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, even flooding and changing voting demographics, this is a form of mass mind control.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you can promise a group of people free stuff and that they won't have to work, but yet they can still get free stuff, like this is a form of control. And at one point in time, this is why like the argument of this is a nation of immigrants, like that argument bothers me, obviously because it's a terrible argument, but at that point in time, when we were bringing immigrants in, there was no welfare state. So,
Correct.
so the immigrants, including my ancestors, would have to come here and make it themselves. There is no safety net. They could come here and they would be successful if they worked for it, right? They weren't going to come here, get given health care, housing, food, while the citizens are also starving to death, fighting for their place to live, fighting for these low-paying jobs that are probably going to get given to somebody else that will work for pennies on the dollar, So this is a form of mass mind control. It's a way to be able to control the outcome of these large groups of people. And, I hate to put it this way, but it is the truth that a lot of these larger immigrant groups that are coming into the country are not as well educated. They have lower IQs. And while that doesn't mean everything, it does mean something. So they are, and what it means in this context is that they are more easily manipulated. Mm-hmm. Now, I think this is absurd. Like, being able to manipulate somebody who is easily manipulatable, like that, to me, that is gross, right? Like,
yeah. Criminal. It's criminal.
It is a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
But it is all part and parcel of the same. So it's just that it's a different it's a different level of brainwashing. Like I said, so brainwashing comes in many different forms, and this is just one of the forms that it comes in. So some of the other forms of mind control. So there's from simple to complex. So there's the television, there's subliminal messaging, and here's my favorite one, is peer pressure and social pressures. Okay? This is a form of mind control. Also, manipulation of the masses through food, water, and vaccines. Also, social engineering or a shock strategy, school shooters or mass tragedies.
Sure.
And also electromagnetic waves and psychotronics. So these are all different forms of mass brainwashing, and they're all used against us in many different ways. Same with the money. The money supply being manipulated. This is, while it's not necessarily mind control, it kind of is, because if you listen to the way that people speak about money, people say, oh, everything's getting more expensive. No, 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 no. It's not getting more expensive. The purchasing power of our dollar is becoming less and less. So the way that we are trained to speak about our money is the mind control aspect, if that makes sense. So, I mean, there's mind control all the way through this, up and down everywhere you turn. And this is why I place such importance on it, because once you can start realizing that our reality has been so twisted and manufactured to the degree in which it has, everything starts making a lot more sense. And then you can start really seeing things clearly. But then the question becomes, you've got to be careful to not overcorrect, because in my circles, there's a problem with everyone believing that everything is fake and made up. Not true. If everything was fake, if everything is a psyop, if everything is propaganda, then nothing is, right? Because if everything is propaganda, then nothing can be propaganda. The reason that propaganda works is because objective truth exists.
Yeah.
And it's the subversion of objective truth. So you got to be careful not to overcorrect on this. So we are inundated with psychological operations. We are inundated with propaganda and mind control all the way through. In fact, there's a very interesting essay that was written on this called Mind Wars. It was written by Lieutenant Colonel Michael Aquino, who is a name that everyone needs to know. He was an open Satanist and a lieutenant colonel. So this is a name, but he wrote a essay called Mind Wars, and he also wrote it. His co-author, Paul Vassars, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, he might still be, he was on the board of TPUSA. So very interesting.
Yeah.
But they both co-wrote Mind Wars, which is basically why psychological operations did not work in Vietnam, and how, moving forward, psychological operations need to be applied to the populace in order to win the minds and hearts of those who determine the outcome of any conflict, which is we the people. So we have all the power. They want to control us. It's a very simple concept. So, but you are dead on with that, moving these voting demographics in is definitely a form of mind control.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting to think about it through those different lenses, like you said, kind of from simple to complex. I know that this is veering away a little bit, but I think there's some overlap. So hopefully you'll illuminate that for us. One subject that, of course, we talk about a lot here and that we've not been able to let go is everything that's been going on surrounding the Epstein files and the Epstein class. Obviously, you mentioned billionaires a little bit in the end there and their incessant need to control all of us in mass. So the powerful people that we came to see that are involved with this type of stuff at this level, and the implications that this has on an international scale. I just kind of wonder, what your thoughts are as far as the overlap that goes on with the mind control there. Is there any, what else should we be thinking about as we're kind of watching that whole story unfold? Hopefully that question makes sense.
Yeah. So, first of all, there is overlap. I mean, I believe there's overlap of mind control in all of this. Because like I said, this is their religion, and they, everyone always asks, who's they? I'll tell you who they is. It's the social engineers. It's the billionaires who do want to control this. Larry Fink of BlackRock. He's a social engineer. He is part of they, right? Now, they does change depending on the context of who you're talking about, but it's the pyramid structure. It's the people at the top of the pyramid that are above us who are making the decisions that trickle down and affect us. That's they. Now, with Epstein, all of this does affect us. Another subject that I've been focusing on largely is the satanic panic. For those who don't know, the satanic panic is a time period, basically 1980 to about the late 1990s, when the official narrative, the official story is that hysterical Christians believe that, baby-eating Satanists were kidnapping and abusing children all over the country, and it wasn't true, and there was a bunch of trials that were basically fabricated and all of this stuff. Well, when you re-examine it, there actually were Satanists and occultists who were harming children. And I think post-Epstein, we can see that this is continued. Now, granted, this is not the only thing we've learned about through the Epstein releases, but this is one of them. That at these upper levels, there's a group of people, I don't believe it's everyone at these levels, but I believe it is a good chunk of them, at least in control of our country, that are blackmailed and controlled through the use of children, the abuse of children mainly. I believe that some of these people enjoy it. I believe that some of them don't, but are forced to anyways, and so that's a distinction. I don't think that makes anyone less bad. I think they're all just terrible. I'm for the wood chippers as far as it goes with these people, but there is definitely major overlap. Now, I believe these sorts of things have been going on for a long time, such as you look at the Franklin scandal. This is a massive scandal that took place in Omaha, Nebraska during the 80s. It was found out basically that members of the Republican Party were trafficking in young boys. Boys Town was implicated. It all surrounded a man by the name of Lawrence King and Craig Spence. Craig Spence was a madam of young boys, and basically nothing happened. Everyone that came forward that was going to testify was threatened. In fact, one person refused to recant. Alicia, can't remember her last name off the top of my head, but Alicia from the Franklin scandal refused to recant her story and actually spent time in prison over this. So the Franklin scandal is a big deal, and it exposes that this has been happening in politics for a long time, to the point that I believe that this is one of the currencies. Now, there is massive evidence that the CIA has been trafficking drugs and guns for a long time. In fact, this is where most of their money comes from, the black operations. This is the whole Iran-Contra scandal, right? Mm-hmm. They were flying drugs from South America into Mena, Arkansas, and several other places. In fact, they intentionally caused the crack cocaine epidemic in the 1980s. Which absolutely decimated the black community and many parts of the white community as well. And this was done intentionally to be able to get the black money to fund all of these black operations, because you can't really go to Congress and say, hey, we're experimenting on people unethically, and we need a bunch of money to continue doing that. So you can't really do that. But they do have, through the National Security Act, I believe, of 1954, they have the FBI, CIA have the ability to do these sorts of things and have exemptions. So they get exemptions, which basically turns them into criminals. You know,
of course,
just legalized criminals. It's the difference between a pirate and a privateer. You know, it's state sanctioned.
Yeah.
And then we have other we have other scandals like the Finders. The Finders is also another actual satanic cult that was discovered trafficking children. So, and this was back in the 80s. We look at the McMartin Preschool case. Everyone says, oh, it was fake. Nobody was convicted, so therefore nothing, you know, what the kids said wasn't true. Well, that's not the case. The tunnels were found. In fact, I have video of it. So if anyone's ever curious, I have video of the tunnels that were found at McMartin. So I also have pictures. The tunnels were found. They were found exactly where the children said that they were. I mean, it's interesting that when you start examining these cases, right, that there's just a lot more that we were never told. In fact, one of my favorite to re-examine is the John Wayne Gacy case. It is very clear that through a man named Philip Paskey, John Wayne Gacy was connected to a man named John David Norman. John David Norman was a very well-known and thoroughly convicted pedophile who ran an organization called the Odyssey Foundation. The Odyssey Foundation was a child sex trafficking ring. So, and that is also tied to a serial killer by the name of Dean Corll. So these rings have existed for a long time. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I believe that children are a currency to these people. Because typically when trafficking rings get busted, there's never any money that gets found. It's because the kids are the money. So this is just one of those things. I think, in my personal opinion, after doing the research that I've done and continue to do, that this is just one of the ways that everything runs, unfortunately. Guns, drugs, and kids. So, and kids being the highest of that hierarchy. So there is tons of overlap. Now, here's the thing that I believe to be true is that these are not different organizations. I believe them all to be the same. Epstein's organization existed before him, and it has existed after him. It is still taking place to this day. In fact, human and child trafficking specifically is the largest black market industry out there. I mean, we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars. And it doesn't stop. So the clients are still out there. I believe Epstein is one of many people that do this. So it's basically, it's a long-winded answer, but yes, I believe there's tons of overlap. And this also ties back into the mind control, where they want us to live, like, for instance, The Sound of Freedom, right? It was great because it brought the subject matter into the conscious mind of the average American. The downside to it, and why I thought it was a piece of propaganda, was because it made human trafficking seem as a problem outside the country, not inside the country. It made us look elsewhere. It's happening in our backyards. And I think to get people to look outside the country was the trick. It's happening here. I mean, unfortunately, the United States is the number one consumer of CSAM, child sexual abuse material. And I mean, that as far as I know, the Department of Justice has the largest collection of CSAM material, which they use so that they can track and trace, but somehow they're unable to track and trace it. They can somehow track when they came into contact with people that were infected with COVID.
Yeah.
But they can't track this.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of a long-winded answer, but yeah, I mean, I think this is actually at the center of all of that. I think this is the big main point. And sorry to break it to everybody, but a lot of these people are genuine Satanists. That doesn't mean all Satanists, but some of these people are genuine Satanists. They didn't call themselves that. They're not a Satanist like, ooh, look at me, I wear a big pentagram. They're more discreet than that. But some of them do genuinely believe this stuff. So,
yeah. It's a hard answer, but it's really a great answer. I think that we agree with you on so much of this, that there are so many people at the top that, I mean, currency is a really great word here, that they operate with these types of currencies. And this is the part that's really interesting about the Epstein thing, because it does, similar to like you said with the Sound of Freedom, it kind of brings this conversation that's been happening for many, many years to light, and it brings it to the public stage. What I think is most concerning to us, and what I think is a direct tie to this mind control conversation, is the lack of public outcry, or at least how limited that outcry was. It fell into the same timeline as every other major news story and fell right back out of it. And to me, that speaks volumes of what type of control we're all under, to be able to see something like this so prevalent, so openly available, and let it go. That's alarming.
I think Jacob alluded to the bread and circuses. We're fed this 24-hour story loop, some of which they call news. None of it's valid news, or most of it's not valid news. But I think they keep us stuffed full of the never-ending bread and circuses that are presented to us daily. And the other thing is, I think as we talked here tonight, so much of it goes back to those other underlying issues with the mind control. There's always something bigger to be more concerned with. There's always the folks that are going to let, no matter what the agenda gives to them, they're going to let that ride because of what it might mean to them if something happens to the agenda disher outer. So it's really, really interesting to me, where I'd like to kind of go as we're inching up on the 2 hours. Is there, Jacob, solutions in mind, and how do we help people get out of this mind control that we're under, that we're constantly being fed? And one of the things that we have talked about here many times over the last couple of years was, we really think there's a solution based in the younger generation, because they appear to be more alert and awake to some of the things where folks in my generation, if they are aware of it, they kind of shy away from it. They don't want to talk about it, where I think on the younger side of that spectrum, it's much more open. And I think people are at the younger ages are recognizing what it's doing to them and their future.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I also, so to answer your question, yes, there is a solution, period. So things are not hopeless. In fact, I am more filled full of hope than I think I ever have been in my entire life. Okay. First and foremost, the best thing is to have these conversations. And
absolutely,
once again, sorry to break it to everybody, but there's going to be sometimes you have these conversations and you're going to get called nuts, a conspiracy theorist, name whatever propaganda term under the sun. You just got to work through it. And sometimes it's going to suck, because it's going to be your friends and your family, but you just got to keep pressing it. Now, It's all about finesse, right? You don't keep pressing something where somebody gets angry, excuse me. But, you know, even though lots of my family it's not willing to hear some of this stuff, I still keep talking about it. I've made a career out of this, you know? This is that important to me. So it's having the conversations, right? And I'll have these conversations with complete and utter strangers in public. I'll have these conversations with family and friends. I post about it online. Now, you have to balance this too, because you can really drive yourself to a bad place if you're not careful, okay? Have an outlet. Have that switch of, I call it, you know, just like taking a blue pill. I like watching a good old movie every now and then, right? Just to kind of shut the brain down for a sec. But here's the thing. Here's my hope. Here's where my white pill comes in, right? That if everything was hopeless, their propaganda would be pointless, right? There would be no reason for them trying to propagandize us as hard as they constantly are. The reason they're doing this is because they realize that they are losing control. So we are winning, okay? If like I said, if things were hopeless, their propaganda would be pointless. They would not need to propagandize us. But they propagandize us so hard, and they push these psychological operations on us so hard because objective truth exists, and they can't escape that. They want us to forget that this objective truth exists, that men can get pregnant, and that, you know, we need AI for everything. You know, like, they want us to live in this fake world that doesn't exist. And luckily for us, a lot of people are waking up to the bullshit. Sorry for my language, but that's what it is.
No.
And these people will not stop, but they're losing control. So this is where my hope comes from. So this is the biggest thing, right? To keep hope alive, because they want us to lose hope. Because if we lose hope, if things were hopeless, then that stops any meaningful resistance before it even begins. So, keep hope alive, keep having the conversations, keep listening to shows like this, shows like mine. Once again, it doesn't matter that the podcast market is flooded or the information market is flooded. It's death by 1,000 cuts. We get this out to as many people as possible. And if you found any bit of information useful in this, share this show. Share it out to as many people as possible. Hit the like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Get it out, because this is how we change things. Now, another thing to do, once again, the battle, the front, the front line is in our home, period. Start looking for natural alternatives. One thing that I did with my family last year is I switched over to handmade laundry soap, because laundry soap is one of the most toxic things in your household. And you put it on your clothes, and your skin is constantly touching it and absorbing all of those chemicals. We also drink filtered water. You know, do these things. Take baby steps. It's overwhelming. It really is. You don't have to have a homestead tomorrow. But what you can do is once a month, once every couple of months, learn a new skill. Become more independent. Make the switch over to learning how to make your own laundry detergent, or, you know, organic doesn't really mean anything anymore, unfortunately, because of people like Bill Gates, but there are other solutions. Go to a farmer and buy your food instead of the grocery store, you know? The front line is in our house. Start fighting back on the front lines, okay? These are one of the best things. And then the best solution to any of this, to anything, is education. Start learning it. Like I said, watch shows like mine, watch shows like this. Once again, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of information. But there's people like you guys we're able to have these types of conversations, hopefully I've been able to distill a lot of this information down to a bite-sized chunk to get people thinking about it, which is really the whole point. Because the best thing you can do for breaking up the cult mindset is to get the cult member to question the cult leader. And once you can get that, that's it. There's cracks in the foundations. Once there's cracks in the foundations of the cult mindset, that's it. You plant the seed of truth. And unfortunately, for the powers that be, the social engineers, I refuse to call them elite because they're not. The oligarchs is what I like to call them because that's exactly what they are. These monsters, in my opinion. The truth never stays buried. Now, in my opinion, God has sent people like us on a mission to be able to push the truth, to try and wake people up, to continue spreading the hope that needs to stay alive, in order to be able to win, in my opinion, a physical, mental, and spiritual battle that they're in. So, honestly, those are the best things that you can do. And just realize it's baby steps. It took us decades to get where we are. It's going to take decades to get out. So you don't have to have 100% solution tomorrow. Just start making the steps. And all of these things compound. So eventually, then if you start today, by next year, you'll be in a lot better position than you were today because the whole idea is independence. We need to become independent from the system, right? This system relies on us being dependent upon it. We learn the skills, we learn community skills again, right? We grow our communities again. Like I said, it's in the house. Fight back on the battlefield in the home. Keep pushing. Never give up. I'm ready to die on my feet before I live on my knees. And because I refuse to be their slave anymore. And I'm done with it. And if we all do it, if we all make these baby steps, the truth will never stay buried and we're going to win. So that's my recommendation to everyone.
Excellent.
That was perfect. Truly. That's right on with everything that we believe in and try to express here. And you really summed it all up very nicely. And you did do an amazing job distilling a lot of information. There's a ton of resources that were shared here tonight, though. So we will link a lot of it in the show notes. Jacob, if you just wanted to give yourself one last plug before we wrap up too, I'm sure people will want to know where you're at because there's clearly a lot more information to be learned.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I've got probably, 2-3 decades of content to be made for the future. So, the best place to find me, you can go to my master link, which is allmylinks.com/rise to liberty. And that's my master link. It pulls up every single link of where you can find me. You can also find me on Substack at Beware the Mockingbird. I'm on X, formerly Twitter, Telegram, and Instagram at Rise to Liberty. You can find my show, Rise to Liberty, anywhere podcasts are found. I do have premium Substack coming, so that's in the near future. There's going to be all sorts of research that's available to people. I've got all sorts of free stuff coming. You can go to risetoliberty.store for merch. There's going to be digital stuff coming. Like I've got this parapolitical researchers kit. It's like a beginner's kit to start researching some of this stuff, and it's going to have like how-tos and all sorts of fun stuff. So there's just all sorts of stuff. Like I said, this is so important to me. I've made it my career. I love having these conversations. So thanks for having me on. Once again, Rise to Liberty, Beware the Mockingbird. Pretty much anywhere that you see those two names is where you can find me. And this was a great conversation. Thank you again for having me. I'm looking forward to the next.
Yeah, right on. Us too, definitely. I know there's a million more subjects that we could have touched on, but there's only so much time. So, Jacob, we typically close out with a Bible verse that my dad typically leads us on. So, if you like to stay here for that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Okay, for tonight. But as for the cowardly, the faithless, the detestable, as for murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake that burns with fire and sulfur, which is the second death. And that is Revelation 21:8.
Good verse for tonight. Well, very well said.
All right, Jacob, it was certainly a pleasure having you on. I'm sure we would love to have you back on again and pick through some more of these details. Kind of an overview tonight, but such a great topic to dig into and disseminate this information out to others who may not have even given it consideration. So thanks for the time.
Yeah, anytime. Like I said, this was a blast, and anytime you guys want me back, there's so much to get into, and I'd be more than happy to explore it. And hey, if I don't know it, hey, let's do some research live on air, we'll dig into it together. So,
Excellent.
If I don't know where it is, I'll do what I can to find it or be able to point people in the right direction. So, it's about the information. That's what matters. So, yeah, thank you guys again.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Jacob. With that, we'll close it out. Alrighty, everybody. So, wow. That was Jacob Johnson, once again, from Rise to Liberty podcast. He is truly a treasure chest of information. Really, we're at the tip of the iceberg tonight, and we can go so much deeper on this subject matter. But the important thing is that we were at the top of that iceberg and that you did hear some of this information. It is so critical to start thinking about everything in the world around us this way. It will directly impact the way that we absorb information, the way that we respond to things that are happening. It's such an important time to be completely based in truth. And to do that, we have to know the things that are a threat to truth. Tonight, we talked about that just a little bit. So huge thank you to Jacob. And he said it best. If you resonated with this podcast at all, this conversation that we had tonight, if this was something that maybe opened your eyes to some new information, anything at all, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. That's the most important thing, to get this information out there. So with that, we lost Pops just before we're ready to wrap it up here. So I will go ahead and say good night, everybody. We'll see you next week at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate the support and truly love getting to share this message with anyone who wants or needs it. The best way for you to support the show is to subscribe, add a rating, and share with everyone you know. You can find us on Instagram, X, and at thefourthbox.com. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. Stay vigilant.